Hello, this is Brett Knowles from PM2 Consulting. This quick video walks you through how we can assure the correct cascade down to individuals in teams, and specifically how to make sure that we've created mission-driven teams in your organization. So this is based on what we call the ontology process. And the ontology process is pretty straightforward. What we should be able to do is list the mission, the strategy, strategic objectives for the organization down the left side of a spreadsheet. So in this case, we'll think of these as being mission statements or strategic objectives A, B, C, and D. And then across the top, we'll note down what we do. Because, of course, the things that we do in this example listed from activities 1 through 8 are in aid of achieving this mission. So we should be able to assess how does each process help achieve these mission or strategic goals. So in this case, if we take a look at process 1, it impacts strategic objective A, C, and D. Now, by comparison, if we take a look at process 2, it has a high impact on supporting objectives B and D. So on the surface, if we were to take a look at these two processes, we might say process 1 is more important than process 2 because, of course, it hits and supports more elements of the mission or strategy. But mission and strategy is all about priority setting. So if we add in the priorities, in this case, adds up to 100%, strategic A is worth 100, strategic objective B is worth 50, strategic objective C is 20, and D is 20. So now when we take a look at it, we can see that in fact process B may be more important because it impacts a strategic objective that's worth 50% plus one worth 20. In other words, it touches 70% of the strategy, whereas process A touches 50% of the strategy. So the strategy begins to help us identify which processes are more important to strategic success. Now, we can take this model one step further, and instead of just putting in an X, we'll score its impact. So the impact of process 1 on objective A, if it's minimal, we'll give it a score of 1. If it's critical, in other words, if this process failed, could we still achieve this objective? It would hit a 5. So for this random scoring, we've said process 1 has an impact of 1 on strategic objective A, 3 on C, and is critical to D. In fact, now that we've scored its impact, we can take it even another step and calculate how many strategy points are available. So the strategy points here would be 1 times 10, or 10. Strategy points here would be 3 times 20, or 60. This would be 100, 50, and 40. So now we're taking a look at two important things. Its level of impact and strategic importance. And this allows us to identify which node is critical to the success of the business, and even how important each process is. So if we add up all the points for process 1, it's worth 170 points, and process 2 is worth 90. So now the priority is flipped again. Earlier on, we suggested maybe process 2 is more important. We can now see that in fact it's process 1 based on this strategy. Now, if the weighting's changed, which they might do over time, it's possible that in another scenario or different weighting, process 2 might be more important. Anyhow, moving on to the topic of mission-driven teams, to make it easier for us to identify the critical nodes, we're just going to color them. So anything, say, 20 and under is a light gray, anything from 20 to, say, 59 is dark gray, and anything above 59 is a black. So now if I score the overall ontology, we can see the critical nodes inside the overall regime of processes we're looking at. Now, if we begin allocating these processes down to teams, so let's say team 1 is responsible for processes 1, 2, and 3, and team 2 owns processes 4 through 8. Now each team can see what's critical to their success. So So team 1 needs to focus on these 3 nodes. Process 1, strategic objectives C and D, and process 3, strategic objective A. Whereas team 2, again, has different nodes to focus on. So now what we've done is we've taken the strategy and accurately cascaded it down to the priorities for each individual team. Now the beauty of this is if the agenda changes partway through the year, and let's say this 50% gets throttled down to 10, and this objective gets bumped up to, say, 60, all of a sudden different nodes are going to turn black, and other ones are going to turn from black back to dark gray, light gray, or even white. So the idea is we now have agility. As we change our strategy, the teams can dynamically shift based on that new mission. So it's in this way we can create mission-driven teams.